I think the sessions have been interactive enough that there was a need for sort of a tea, not a tea break, but like a cup of tea to be consumed so that you are fresh again for the next session. So I think the bell is going on outside. Hopefully, we'll have the other participants and more importantly, our panelists also back here. Okay, we have Dr. Prabodh also here joining us. We are now waiting for only Mr. Praman and Gunjal to be coming in. Okay, he is also on his way. Great. We have Mr. Praman and Gunjal from NICA also joining us. So as we go into this presentation and while we were preparing for this presentation, since we are waiting for some more of our participants to grab their tea and join us back in the room, the presentation that I'm touching upon is strengthening regulatory compliance. And more importantly, what is the way forward kind of? And do we see beyond the normal? And what is a different aspect of seeing it is the perspective. So keeping that in mind, when we were discussing at the panel also that what are the issues typically, because we are seeing that regulatory compliances are increasing. Also, the vigilance from the department is increasing. The larger implication, however, is seen is that when you are undertaking regulatory compliance in different parts of the country, and most of our retailers here who are spread across the country, the issue comes up, is it the same compliance that I need to carry out everywhere? Are the authorities who are examining me aware of what I'm carrying out and therefore they acknowledge what I'm doing it? Similar was a situation being faced by the gold jewelry industry. And I'll take about 5 minutes till the time our other delegates also join us grabbing their tea to just quickly run you through what we had worked out for the gold jewelry industry. So the industry today, the retail industry today is facing the background is that they are we are spread across the country, right? From the remotest village to the metro cities, there will be a retailer you will find. They are contributing to the economy and to the employment of the country. And there are varied transactions being innovated every day. You have a certain sort of a scheme, you have a certain freebie being provided, you have a certain EMI scheme which is there. All of these are resulting into complications arising under every aspect. And therefore, there needs to be a consistency or a clear approach as to how to deal with each of these transactions. Similar was the issue with the gold jewelry industry also. And as ELP, we had put together a SOP, a standard operating procedure for the gold jewelry industry, which was also facing these issues of a background diversity in transactions and various hurdles. And we were able to come together with a sort of SOP. Can we have the next slide, please? And the SOP, and we took it to the Commerce Ministry to say if we can get some sort of a confirmation. What the SOP supported was, because today as we were deliberating and discussing with the industry members, the issue which was coming up is the regulatory compliances are increasing. The tax compliances are also increasing. It is not that this industry is averse at complying with it. आप हमको बोलोगे कि इतना इतना कर रहे हैं हम कर लेंगे, बट करने के बाद आप हमको बता दीजिए क्लियर टर्म्स में कि ये करना है, ये करना है, ये करना है, and we'll do that. It shouldn't be a situation that I've done all of this and tomorrow again you come and tell me, no, this you did wrong, this should have been done. Or I've been doing it for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and one fine day you come back and say, oh, what you did in the last 6 months was not appropriate. So there is need for clarity, there is need for consistency in your interpretation of the applicable regulations to me. And lastly, the regulators, the administrators, officers which are there, please come across as a service provider, that is a facilitator to us, because we are in partnership. The government, the administrator and the business are in partnership and we are intending to work together. And therefore this SOP was intended to be created covering, this was from gold jewelry perspective, that these were the important legislations which were required. And if you go to the next slide, that the different unique transactions which were there, we were built up in this. I'll take an example of one of the transactions. For example, even in the retail industry, we have a lot of stuff which is done on job work basis. And in gold jewelry industry also, there was a lot of things which were done on job work basis. And in that job work, how do you deal with in from a GST perspective was becoming an implication. So we had this one chapter. Can you go to the SOP itself? So we created a scanning sort of, and you can download the entire gold jewelry SOP just by scanning this from the website. And once you have that SOP, we had created an ease of surfing through the SOP to the minutest aspects. So I was taking the example of, say, you're carrying out something through a job work. When you're carrying out something through a job work, there is in job work one important aspect becomes if the raw material is being provided by the principal and the manufacturing is carried out by the job worker, what is the delivery challan under which he provides? Now the job worker may be located in a remote area. He may not be really having the wherewithal of a good system and everything. He may not be having the best of the consultants supporting him. In which case will he be able to comply with? Yes, he will be able to comply with if he goes into this SOP, because the SOP takes him to what are the contents of the delivery challan. The SOP takes him into how does the format of the delivery challan look by just a click of a button. So the thing was that this SOP now becomes useful tool for bringing about consistency in the entire industry for a certain nature of transaction. I took the example of job work, or take the example of procurement of certain capital goods or raw materials. Not just that, because it is somewhere supported by the Commerce Ministry as a just, it also gets some sort of a government backing to say that yes, if you're following this, you are achieving the purpose that is there. And therefore, if an officer is taking a view that nahi, aap kal tak ye galat kar rahe the, we can say, but this SOP shows this, right? And I've been following this. Lastly, sometimes it so happens that some of these aspects in the industry also are quite complicated, and the officers also don't have a clear understanding of the industry nuances. It becomes useful for the authorities also to get a better understanding of the industry by going through this SOP. So I was just giving the example that this was in relation to manufacturing of jewelry at own premises. If you go down, it is, go to the next page. From hallmarking perspective, if it's done at the karigar or job worker's place, what are the different ways in which the remuneration is calculated? If you go down from a GST law perspective, then if he has to disclose something, delivery challan, you click here, it will take you to what are the contents of a delivery challan. If you see in the bottom of the page, there is the contents of the delivery challan. If you go back, you will see that what is the format of the delivery challan. Click here, you will get the format of the delivery. So the SOP was made comprehensive, and that's why the Commerce Ministry was also acknowledged of this, that okay, something like this will bring about consistency, clarity, and an understanding between the industry and the authorities that this is how we intend to follow and this is how you will be administering us, which then brings about a level playing field. It is not that we are facing surprises. So this was just an instance which I was giving because this came to my mind when we were preparing for this panel, and I have with me a very esteemed panel here, and let's start with the session here. So the session today is on, you all had a session on GST earlier in the day. The session now is about the other regulatory requirements, because as retail industry we are seeing a lot of regulatory requirements or compliances coming through, and there are some which are becoming sort of hurdles or constraints, whereas there are some which are required to be complied with and we are complying with it. But what is the implication coming through? We can do it. We come to the panel discussion. Like I mentioned, the panel is mainly focused on exploring basics and advanced strategies at managing the compliance required under the regulatory requirements of the retail industry. I have with me a very esteemed panel. I have Mr. Dinesh Sharma from Celio, Mr. Jaffer from Metro Brands, Mr. Dr. Prabodh from Marico, Mr. Premanand from Nykaa, and Mr. Vijay Gupta from Shoppers Stop. Thank you so much, panelists, for being part of the panel and interacting this. Let's go through our the different questions that we've tailored here. So, as I said, the whole purpose of the discussion is the regulatory constraints that we believe, and I'm using the word constraints, it's actually the regulatory requirements. Are these actually constraints? Because regulatory requirements today mainly are from a consumer awareness, consumer protection perspective. In India, we've seen over the last 5 years or maybe a decade, a significant enhancement in the regulatory requirements, We've also seen a rise in the vigilance. But is it new to India? If you see the world over, these regulations and this nature of regulations have been around for quite some time. Not just that, in fact, India was a late entrant in adopting and enhancing them. But we haven't heard or read about too much where globally, in other jurisdictions, retailers or even the industry has been facing or calling it sort of a constraint or issue. Is it because of the manner in which they are handling it, or is it the manner in which the legislation is? What is that perspective? And let me put it across to our panelists. Dr. Prabodh, would you like to throw some light that you all have products from Marico, which you all are exporting in various jurisdictions, etc. Have you ever faced that, because there are regulatory requirements there, there is a constraint coming about, or how do you handle those, and how is the best way to deal with it? I don't think it's coming through.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think your presentation was very clear, and though it was related to the gold, but about the regulatory compliances, and today India is post-COVID particularly. We have seen that the China's loss has gained by India in various aspects. So particularly in FMCG, I would say in the cosmetic, the food, and in the FMCG sector, our export have increased. So what we have generally seen, I will not quote particularly from my company, but for the benefit of everyone, what generally we have seen, the non-tariff barriers and otherwise the trade barrier we called, two things which we have observed that any product like cosmetic or food, the ingredient safety is a paramount. It's very important. And as we all know that European Union, their safety requirements are maximum. They are at the recent issue of the spices you must have seen, the ETO issue. The level of the ETO is 2.5 milligram. Safety is something at more than 500, but their limit is 2.5, and it is their limit. It is not necessary. US is above 8, and that's why the Hong Kong and Singapore also has banned. Actually, is a trade barrier. It is nothing to do with the safety of the product. Because we are exporting more and they need to find out how to stop them and how to take the cheaper product from other country. All these are the trade barriers. So what we have observed that we need to be very, very clear which country you are exporting and what are the regulation. You should not land into the issue after reaching to the container, the product has been rejected. So whoever is exporting, our suggestion would be you should be very clear that particular country conformance to which standard. Do they go with the EU or do they go with their own regulation? Most of the Middle East, when it comes to the India, they follow EU. Better follow EU. There are two stringent aspects, one is EU and one is US. Rest, most of the country have their own. So there is a trade barrier. Same case with the import. India also have some kind of compliances. So whenever you do import or export, law of the land you have to follow. And you cannot say I'm ignorant about this, because ignorance doesn't go with the law. It is your mistake. So I have more 2 points, but I will speak in the later.
Sure. I think a very important point. So and just I'm reiterating that understanding of the law of the land, and thereafter being able to justify that or prove that. That means I'm assuming that there would be NABL approved lab, etc., which will give you a report. And once your consignment is accompanied by a report, it's less often than never that somebody will be restricting your this. But knowing the law and then abiding by it becomes critical. Dinesh, if I come to you, you had mentioning about also the valuation aspect, and that sometimes becomes an issue in the international trade.
Yeah, I think good afternoon to everyone. So basically, just add on to the point here, since more and more globalization happening, so we are also getting a lot of international exposure. And when it comes to a transaction, especially with the related parties, the valuation. So they're the authorities who take up with the different angles. Like if I have to cite an example of a transfer pricing where AE transaction is being done. So the authorities like income tax, they treat it in one way. The question to the method, that is something which I think government may have to work it. The method which is being adopted by the businesses are being also questioned by the authorities. And that too also over the period of time. So that becomes a challenge. And the same way, if I evaluate the transaction with customs, the customs, what they say that the valuation adopted for the income tax per se are too different, whereas you have undervalued your product. So this is something which is a challenge which entire industry, I'm sure today is facing off. But honestly speaking, like in the previous law of service tax where we had negative and positive list, same way here also, if industry specific guidelines that can be given, it will be more valuable to add on this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. So I think very clearly we are hearing that there are regulations. It's not, India is not unique. In other jurisdictions also there are. And if so long as you are able to comply with it and you understand the law effectively, there are lesser hindrances or, like we say, obstacles or hurdles that you are likely to face. If so, then why are we again and again saying that, the regulatory landscape or the regulatory compliance requirement in India is growing so much and it's becoming sort of a constraint? And it's like the echo that we are seeing it. And of course, we have on the slide the whole bunch of different regulations that normally most retailers are required to comply with. And therefore, there is regularly a need for more investment, more focus, etc., requiring on these kind of regulatory requirements. Which means that the overall regulatory requirement in India is continuously growing. Is then, because we just saw before in the previous slide that globally also there is, then why is India becoming a constraint? Is it that there is lack of clarity or there is lack of consistency? Are those aspects? In our conversation, one of the aspects which came through, and just to give an instance, was when I was talking to Jaffer, and Jaffer, you want to throw some light on the recent introduction of BIS regulations for the footwear industry.
Thank you, Nishant, for this. See, we are very happy that our government is working towards regulations, and the government wants that the products available in India should meet up the international standards. Recently, the government has come with the BIS regulation in footwear, since I am from the footwear industry. So the government wants that the products which is available in India to the customer should also meet the international standards. But though all the retailers and the manufacturers are ready and willing to contribute and go with the government norms, but however there are certain challenges what especially I will talk about the footwear industry is facing when these type of new regulations are introduced. Okay, we welcome the government's action for the regulation, but then if you see the footwear industry when this regulations was introduced, there was no clarity because footwear has various categories. You have shoes, sports shoes, sleepers, sandals, XYZ. And there was no clarity under which category and what has to be done and whether all categories are supposed to be follow the regulations and get the certification. So first of all, there was no clarity. Second thing, then you need to get the certification of the product. Now, which product to get certified, whether this product, then thanks to Gautam and the RAI team, the advocacy committee has worked with the ministry, and then we got the clarity. These are the categories under which we need to follow the guidelines. Then the question came from where we do get this certification done. Now government is introducing new regulations, but to comply with that regulations, still we are not ready. The industry is not ready. There are no certification centers available for where the customer or the manufacturer goes and get the product certified. One more challenge is that when majority of the footwear brands are from the international standards and they are manufactured outside India. Now the regulation says that you have to get the factory also certified. The cost implication is like if it is a factory in a particular country, it is $25,000 per factory. If it is another country, it increases, the cost increases. So these are the challenges. See, these are the hurdles where we want to comply with. But as Nishant said in his introduction, you tell us what you want to comply with and we are ready to comply. There is no clarity which is available. These are one of the challenges what the retailers and the manufacturers face and which becomes one of the hurdle in doing business.
Great. Thank you, Jaffer. So I think again it's resounding to that nobody's averse at following the law. The law is applicable and it's for the benefit of the industry, the trade, the consumers, everyone, and we are abiding by it. Let there be clarity and things. And BIS is an example. We've been seeing, in fact, if you go to the next slide, we've been seeing that there is a statement that more and more products are intended to be covered under BIS. Nobody's averse at following that because it's for the benefit of the customers, like we're saying. They will also get the best quality products. But please make it simple. Please make it clear. And please be consistent in your approach so that we can follow effectively, we can implement it, and the trade continues smoothly. This slide is basically to highlight that with these regulations, some of these regulations have undergone change, some of these regulations have been existing for some time, some new regulations have been added. But over the last few years, we have seen that there is enhanced vigilance. We've all of a sudden started seeing that a number of notices have started coming through under legal metrology. Notices are being, there is market visits taking place under some or the other regulation. There is confiscation of goods. There is a notice therefore being issued from a penalty perspective, etc. When these issues are coming up, what happens is that one is all of a sudden there is any notice coming from the government is not a welcome move because obviously there is a constraint which is there. How do you deal with those situations, and when these notices are coming through, how best do you handle that? So Vijay, if I may come to you on your experience of when these kind of vigilances have gone up, and what are the implications for the industry?
Good afternoon, everybody. If I talk about, say, simplest case which all of us face on daily basis, legal metrology, this law has been there for ages. Now, even today, we are facing complications, and issues on interpretation. So, as rightly pointed out, we are perfectly fine with following law in letter and in spirit, but then there's a lack of guidance. So, we see FAQs which are there, but then still there are so many issues which are still not sorted out, or there are overzealous officers who are, who are kind of just creating issues for the sake of creating issues, or simple things like if you have mentioned the city pin code, address is properly mentioned, and you missed mentioning the state. That's something you get a notice. So I think so if there's a clear guidance from the government on these kind of things, and the industry is very well comfortable and would want to be compliant to the maximum extent. Second is, I think so, if I look at the ongoing compliances which we have. So I was going through some data. So as I see, if you are say a chain with around 50 plus stores, the number of line items of compliances goes as high as up to 5,000 plus. So luckily we have now tools which are there to ensure that we can comply with the same. But the question remains, are we wanting to do business, or are we wanting to increase the rigor and the cost of industry for some very minor things which can be possibly ignored or which can be considered as a matter of hygiene? Yeah. So, I think so.
Great. No, absolutely. Again, I think that the point again being made is that, yes, we want to, and let me take one example to this, that there is a regulation which comes in, and there is an compliance which is required to be carried out. Companies are not averse at complying, like I've again been saying. What is the role and effect of the regulator? Is he not to step in to support and ensure that the compliance is carried out friendly? I'll take a small example. Maybe we can say it from a tax perspective, that when you have administered from the tax, you call it as the taxpayer service. Taxpayer service means they have to come across to serve the taxpayer to ensure that he's been facilitated to undertake compliance. Is that the role that today a tax administrator is playing? Is he coming across to say that, okay, your return, I'll help you filing the return and I'll help you make sure this? Because today nobody of us is averse. at making the tax, because if you pay a GST, there is a credit going to be coming across to the next buyer, and therefore there is no averseness. But if there is a concern, if there is a non-clarity, and because of which a number has wrongly been put in, is that not the responsibility of the tax officer to come across? And similarly for any other regulatory aspect, if my label has some sort of a distortion, can you not bring it to my notice well in time, and I'll correct it? There is no intention to, there is no malafide intention. It's just, but is the penalty that you're putting it in proportion to the default which has been carried out? Is that so strong that you cancel my license, something like that? That's again another issue. Let me come to Premanandji on throwing some light on his experience of these kind of ongoing transactions.
Thank you very much for this question, because it is an I can guarantee this is more critical question for everyone here. With the Indian regulation, what I can say is post independence, the evolution of regulation happens as what we received from the British, and as per the need of the societal, the laws came into effect. With this particular aspect, now when regulations are evolving as per the need, the regulators are imposing this particular regulation to the society for implementation. Here, I will means most of my regulations are designed according to that particular product. Multiple regulation defining one single product, that brings the complexity for implementing me into the field, and they are more for safety, more of streamlining the process, and for long-term assuring that particular product to be sustaining in the market. Here the regulators and the particular implementer, where I am a manufacturer or I am a marketer, there should be a common platform and a workshop which can give and take both suggestion and the implementation way out, so it streamlines the process across for long-term assurance and implementing it. So this kind of platform, I can request Gautam to take in a more initiative. RAI can play a more pivotal role in this particular aspect, where regulators and we can have a common dialogue, so the process of implementation smoothens and we can be in a good situation to implement it in a long-term way. So that was my one formal opinion which can be taken further.
No, great. I think it's a very important point that he made. And if I may just compare it, and in fact, it was Premanand who had highlighted this point earlier also. Today, if you see in India, if you have a single product, there are multiple legislations, multiple administrators of those regulators which all deal with this one product. Globally, if you see, normally consumer protection or quality control legislation is one legislation under which various regulations come through. And therefore, there is one administrative body. And therefore, from a LM perspective, from a quality perspective, from a quantity perspective, everything, I don't need to go to different authorities to satisfy them. It is one authority who then oversees all of these aspects. And I think that is very effectively put across, that if we have one platform which becomes a single window, because I'm happy to comply. You give me one clear structure and I'll fulfill everything at one location, and you see it at one point. I don't need to interact with 10 different people to satisfy 10 different aspects. Great. Thank you so much for that response. I know the time is ticking away. It's right in front of me, but we have some few interesting questions again. The next one is that today, with the regulations enhancing, also what we are seeing is that with this government especially, the awareness of the consumer is increasing, and which is really good, because the consumer has become aware of the law, etc. With the social media access also, the consumer is more aware of what is happening in current time, in real time. Does that at times also become a disadvantage because the consumer is at times hyperactive, or that having resolved an issue, it is still just causing a concern for the entity, even though the consumer's concern has been sorted out? If I may just request Vijay to throw some light on that, on some incident that you might have faced.
I think so. This is something which is welcome, where people are more aware of their rights, and the government has been working on it, but there is a lot of misuse which needs to be looked into. So, simplest stuff and the most often thing which we see is, say, carry bags. Now, paper carry bags is something which we have charged from, I think so, time immemorial. Now, it so happened that one of the consumer forums, one of the basically consumer commission, national commission or some, one of them passed an order saying that it's an unfair trade practice, and then that's been somewhere been carried on for so long. This is something which, you know, when being brought up before the Supreme Court, they said that there are questions of laws which you have not even considered. Now, this has become something like a racket where people are, just running after retailers and trying to, earn out of it to some extent, I would say. So, uh, I would say that as long as these are measures government which is bringing in and where people are getting the benefit, it's a good thing, but it shouldn't become a tool for people to try to take advantages out of such things, at least the unscrupulous elements, say the carry bag issue, or I would say where there are media trials which are being done. Consumers where even after getting a refund or having their issue sorted, still even after that they run a media trial or make it difficult for companies. And in this world of social media, it becomes increasingly difficult to handle such issues.
Sure. Parman, you have
Exactly. I just want to carry on the chord which Vijay has been shared. It is a major hurdle for ease of operation. It's been the objective in majorly it has been not resolved by that way. Recently 2 years back, the Jan Vishwas bill which was been came and which been implemented as well. But the penetration of this bill to the last particular subject should be should be going that level. That effective implementation is been lacking. So in that front, much of the work we can do, as well as this platform can help us to make it more effective implementation. That particular aspect can assure the ease of business as well.
No, absolutely. I think a lot what we are hearing here is resounding that the government is wanting to bring in legislation to simplify, to make it effective, but there is the maybe the mindset of the administrators which requires a change and effectiveness, which will then, if percolated right up to the bottom line, will have a much better scenario. And let's hope the future brings in that for us. While we were discussing on this issue, there was another very effective aspect put across by Dr. Prabodh. I think Dr. Prabodh is required to take an urgent call. But he highlighted one point, which is a practical point for most retailers. He said that when any consumer complaint has been lodged, there is a portal on which this consumer complaint gets lodged. And say, for example, there is a requirement for a replacement of a product. Even after the product is replaced, the transaction between the retailer and the consumer has been sorted. Consumer is now not unhappy, he's happy. But that complaint which was lodged has not yet been cleared. Now, all of those complaints lodged get accumulated in the database of the government, and when you're going in for your next approval or a next clearance or something, that becomes a hurdle. It is similar to, those CIBIL ratings. That somewhere on my some credit card, some small amount was pending, and because of which there was some interest, I cleared that off also, but my CIBIL rating has not yet been rectified, and therefore when I go for the next loan, this issue comes through. So I think a very important practical perspective that if there are any such complaints, keep it a normal vigilance to go across, check on the portal that there are no such complaints pending. If they are, please do the needful to clear off your pending complaints. Otherwise, it may become a hurdle at some point in time in the future. With that, let me touch upon two other aspects. When we talk about regulatory requirements, the issue comes up that, okay, as retailer, I want to put up a new store or a new unit, etc. And I'll put the query to our panelists that how much of your time, thought process, decision making, and resources go in determining whether to set up a new unit or a store, etc., or not, because of the licensing, the approvals, the permissions, etc., which is required. Of course, there will be how many footfalls and those are the main commercial core aspects. But other than that, because of the legal and regulatory aspect, how much is the proportion of decision making? If I may just request Jaffer to throw some light based on his experience recent.
Everyone knows that the retail industry is growing, and along with the retail industry, we see the aviation industry is also growing. Every brand wants to open the store at the airport. I'll share my challenges when you want to open the store at the airport. First, the airport gives you a very limited time to do the fit outs, and within that limited time, you have to complete your fit outs and complete all the formalities. Now, one of the formalities to open the store at the airport is to take a clearance from the airport authority, right? Bureau of Civil Aviation, actually. Now, when you go, okay, there is the company, there is a lot of requirements, what they want, including the list of directors, their addresses, their police clearance. When we submit, you get a company clearance. Second thing, what is that? After you get the company clearance, you need to take a clearance of an individual directors. So now, if you have a local director in whichever part of the country they are staying, that local police station will take time to give a report that there is no legal cases pending and all. We don't understand that why such huge requirements is there when you have a company clearance. Why and the biggest challenge is what once you have a foreign director. So the inquiry goes to the respective country through a central government, which takes a lot of time. So this is one of the biggest hurdle what we face, where the government should come with a simple norm. Initially now to the government has started, okay, but you put the information on the portal and then you can get, but still it is taking lot of time for us to open the new store. In my previous organization, I was with Shoppers where we have opened this hyper city, the hypermarket business. I still remember that there are 49 licenses required to open one hypermarket and with different department, wherein we request government if they can come with a single window licenses for the hypermarket which is growing in the country in every part. So it will help the customer. So these are the challenges, where the government is coming up with the regulation, looking at the other aspect, but then they should also look at the companies where, they are investing money, taking efforts, that how it will be easy for them to comply with the requirements.
I think again this similar sounding that we are seeing, that there is a need to comprehend or in a way have the use of repository data in a manner that, okay, if one entity has already been granted a permission, do you need to go through the entire sequence of events for a second unit of the same entity, because you already have in your database maybe at not this location but at some other location. But if you're having central legislations and you have the government running across the country, do I need to follow everything right from scratch again in a different state because I'm setting up one more unit there? So I think very effective response. Dinesh, you had something to mention that, even from various profession tax, etc., various registrations perspective, it takes time in getting the clearances.
Yeah, I'm sure, because what happens is now with this growing market, tier 2, tier 3 cities are also being catered. Now, if you intend to open any store in any of these cities, down the line, not only GST, uh, the other relevant licenses, including ShopEx licenses. So they're very surprised, because even for a shop licenses, you need to coordinate with the municipal corporation, and that too also ward wise. I'm saying if it is a single state, if it's a single state, there should be a single window. Once I give my data, I have to just go on adding the locations. That's it. It need not be to that every time I just go back, submit my director list, my authorized signatory list, my business detail to all municipal corporation, even though they are falling under one umbrella. So that's what something which I'm sure this government is very keen on doing on it. But still, these are the present challenges which, as a retailer, when we are opening a new store, because apart from operational aspect, we have to, from day one, we have to think of that what are the statutory things that also had to simultaneously be done. Adding to that, just one thing, if I haven't added that location in my GST, I will not be able to generate my e-way bill. Now, this is something which GST under one PAN, the location is being added, or the centralized location is there. I think the system should adopt it, or should make necessary amendments to the provision.
So maybe just a learning that till the government could be working, and we are seeing certain statements made by the honorable ministers that they are working towards a single window, they are working towards ease of doing business, etc. But that till the time that it happens, maybe a learning for the industry that you maintain the repository of documents, because every time you want to open, you may need the same set of documents. So rather than duplicating, you have put in once the effort, you keep a collection very effectively with you. So we spoke about the concerns while setting up a new unit and things. But a lot of times you also see that you are following a certain procedure or a process or something for last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then one fine day a new officer who has come in, he comes in, he examines something and feels that, oh, your label is not appropriately put in, or your this. So let me call it as the one was first one was the initial setting up. The second one is post facto, and let's call it as post facto surprises. That do you see end up seeing post facto surprises, which is not intentional, because if it was intentional, it would have been done in the first go itself. But post facto surprises, and how are those being handled? So is it that we are seeing some sort of a cooperation with the authorities and therefore it gets effectively sorted out, or it gets into some sort of a contentious issue and therefore it blows a bit out of proportion? So Vijay, if I may seek your inputs in there.
Yeah. So see, this constant change in regulations is something which is, I think so, needs to be looked into by the government and really. So things like if I recently look at the signage issue which happened in Karnataka, so suddenly they said that this is something which was in abeyance and we are enforcing it. With 60% of the signage being at least covered with the Kannada language. So, there was a lot of pain with coercive action being taken, which is to some extent avoidable. Similar instances have happened earlier, say in Hyderabad, where again the signage issue, wherein they said, signage can only be above a certain height. So, the issue largely is, are these sudden changes or changes which are because with whatever earlier wisdom, there has been a regulation which is in place. So suddenly changing it with the extent of additional cost and the burden of burden of facing such issues, and probably the slow knowledge of these changes coming to to people's knowledge, that itself becomes a challenge. Second is something like a tariff change, be it say electricity or property tax, water bills. So there has to be something like a uniformity in the way business is able to recover or maybe cover up those costs. So sudden hikes in such things is something which is avoidable and should be seen in that perspective by the government and the regulators. Yeah, so I think so largely if there is a consistency in the way the government operates and recovers its costs, etc., which they want to pass on to the industry, it would be welcome for the industry, and I think so the retailers will be much better off.
Great, thank you. I've already been indicated that my clock has gone to 0, so my time is up. But just Preman, you had some comments on this one. So
The particular central legislations which are being designed, these central legislations implementation with the state regulators, this doesn't happen in more of what been the design stage. So that particular aspect of diversity of 29 state implementing in a different way, that becomes a much more problematic for me to do the business. So this kind of streamlining of this particular implementation of central legislations, that aspect needs to work out. That the only point
I think very
look at.
interesting point that you have a central legislation, but you have state-wise administrators. Now each state, we know there's so much of diversity in the country. Someone in Andhra will think from the trade and customs in that jurisdiction. Someone in Punjab is thinking from that perspective. Somebody in Assam is thinking from that perspective. And I, as a all India retailer, would not want to have multiple systems in multiple locations. But the manner in which these are being administered is requiring me to duplicate a lot of the efforts, and that at times becomes controversial and impactful somewhere. So thank you so much to my panelists for being crisp and helping me stick to my timelines. We did not have Dr. Prabodh. He had some medical emergency call, but Doctor, I have mentioned your few thoughts. But why don't you give the concluding remarks? And we
medical-
missed you throughout the
No,
session.
no, the medical emergency of my friends, and I have to arrange some blood for them. But sorry for
No,
that.
no, not at
Uh,
all an issue.
What my point was that today, under the transparency, openness, and digitalization, there is a negative pressure on industry. And I'm telling you, as an industry, we need to be prepared for that. What does it mean? When you apply your own returns and what number you fill, and then somebody joins in the company after 2 years, 3 years, the person's responsibility to see that whatever is the information you have earlier colleague have filed should be matching, because they have a record you may not be having. Entire pan India, whatever the information you give one to FDA or legal metrology, earlier it used to be the manual entry, there was no cross checking. Today it is a cross checking. Huge pressure. I think this is one of the learning which I request entire industry, your regulatory, legal, or whoever is the documentation officer should be aware that what the information you are giving to the regulator, better that trails should be maintained. Otherwise, we'll land up into the issue. So this is very important. And second thing is a de-influencers, the negative influencers. Everybody is coming and talking about the negative about the FMCG products, and you are getting the notices. And most of the today the consumers, they complain. They go to one of the retailer and they complain, and then you change the product. You believe that the complaint is closed, but they just log into the CCPA website and log the complaint. They take the product, you believe that he has closed the complaint, but he has not. Rather, he has initiated a complaint, and that trail is continuing and is actually sitting in your FOSCOS or licensing portal. You only come to know after when you go for renewal of the license. Learning number two, all your portals, wherever your licenses are there, check if there is any open complaint and better close it before it converts into the show cause notice or cancellation of the license. I have seen some of the brands got cancellation of the license just because they have not closed this complaint, particularly in FSSAI and the legal metrology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prabodh. I had one of the two issues I had sounded off, but wasn't as passionately as you have done it. So thank you so much for your passion and putting this together. Thank you once again to RAI for giving us this opportunity to moderate this session and for this esteemed panelist. This is Nishant Shah. I am the tax head of economic laws practice. Because tax is more from a GST perspective, also touches upon each of the day-to-day transactions. That's where now my clients have asked me to extend into regulatory, which again touches upon everyday transactions that companies carry out. Thank you so much.